Hey guys, today we'll be showing you how to install the Tusk UTV plug-and-play signal and horn kit on your Polaris RZR Pro model, whether it's the Pro XP, a Pro R, or a Turbo R. Now with this being plug-and-play, it just hooks into existing wiring, but you do have a couple of options for the front turn signals. So you can either get the bubble lights, that's going to be the less expensive option, but if you want to get an accent light with integrated turn signals, you have that option as well. Now, with all that being said, it's a straightforward process. It's going to take a little bit of time because we do need to remove some body panels, but we'll walk you through the process. So let's go ahead and get started. Over at the bench, we have the Tusk signal and horn kit laid out. Now you want to read through your provided set of instructions and get familiar with the install process and make sure all of your parts are here. So with this, we have all of the necessary wiring. We've got our relays and rocker switches. We've got a horn, and then you have a couple options for turn signals. Now this one here, this is the accent light with the integrated turn signals, but if you get the less expensive kit, it's going to come with the bubble lights. In either case, we're going to show you how to install both of these. Now other than that, you're going to be getting your license plate holder as well as a license plate light, and you've got all of the zip ties to tie everything down once we're done. Now I know this looks like a lot of stuff to put on, but we're going to walk you through the process step by step and keep it simple. So let's go over to the machine. To start out, we need to gain access to the areas we're going to be routing our wires. So we're going to start by removing all of our seats. In the front, they're just going to pull up. In the back, you have one section that pulls up and out, and then the bases are going to have 6 screws in them. We're going to use a T40 Torx bit to remove those. And then the rear center console, I'm using a T40 Torx bit and a plastic rivet removal tool. And just pay attention to the hardware as it comes out. There's a couple shorter screws on the sides. After that, we're going to remove that left side console panel for the front, just using the same tools. Then we're going to release the tabs on that top center console. And then to get the side out, we also have a fuse box right above the gas pedal. We need to loosen that up so we can gain access to more trim clips. There's a few just on the front there, and then we're going to remove that left front center console panel. Now before we begin any wiring, we're going to disconnect the negative battery terminal. That's going to be under your driver's seat. Some of them are going to have, or some machines will have 2 batteries, so make sure you get them both disconnected. The other battery is going to be on your passenger side. Next, we need to remove the grill to gain access to the front accent light. You're just going to press in on the 2 tabs and pull it out. If you currently have an accent light, you're going to want to disconnect your electrical connector. Now on the back of your trim piece or your accent light, you're going to have 4 nuts on the prongs that stick through. So I'm using an 11mm wrench to remove those. And with the trim piece, this is actually hooked on to that. So I'm going to remove the electrical connector now. Now before we start routing our wires, I've gone ahead and laid out the harnesses as well as the components that connect to them. And that way we have a solid plan of where everything needs to be. Now something else to be aware of is with these connectors, you want to make sure that all of the pins are perfectly straight. Every now and then you might run into one that is slightly bent. So to make sure you have a good connection, you can use a flat blade screwdriver and straighten that out. To get everything wired up, we're going to start with the main harness. There's 3 wires we are routing towards the front, or 3 wire sets. That's going to be the black and white wire, that's for your horn. Then you've got the green, black, and blue wire, that's your right turn signal. And then the blue, black, and yellow wire, that's going to be for the left turn signal. Now as you connect your turn signals, if you have your bubble lights, you're going to have a connector that has 2 white wires and 2 black wires. So for that, there's 2 different styles of bubble lights that can come in these kits. If you have bubble lights that have white and black wires on them, you're just going white to white and black to black. If you have the kit that comes with the red and black wires on the bubble lights, you're going to go red to black and black to white. Now if you have the front center accent light with the integrated turn signals, you're going to have single wire connectors, and then you're just going to follow green all the way through, make that connection, and then you have one that has a yellow wire, just go yellow all the way through. Now underneath the dash, we're going to have this 12-pin connector. That's going to connect to a sub harness that we connect two relays into, and then two rocker switches. So we're going to use existing rocker switch mounting locations. And then you also have a 2-pin connector that's going to connect right into your LCD. And that way you can use the existing turn signal indicators in your dash. Now underneath the dash, we have our pulse bar connector, and that's where we're going to get our power from. So we'll be connecting into that. And then we also have a flasher relay that we need to mount up. And then on the main harness, we've got a length of wire that has a purple wire in it. We're going to run that through the tunnel all the way to the back firewall, and that's going to connect to the tail harness. Now for the tail harness, you're going to have a connector that has a purple wire on it. That's going to be for the left or driver's side rear turn signal. And then you're also going to be running your license plate light wires with that. So that's the black and blue wires. And when you connect the license plate light into that, red is going to go to the blue wire and black to black. Then on the right side, you have the connector with the brown wire. Now inside the cab on the driver's side, I'm going to route the two front turn signal wires and the horn wires through our bulkhead. And there's a grommet right here that already has a cut in it. And we're just going to leave these here until a later step. Now back inside the cab, we have this 12-pin connector. This is going to sit pretty close to the center of the dash. So we'll leave that alone for now. Next, you have this connector that's going to go to the taillights. It's got the purple wire in it. And we're going to go all the way through the tunnel towards the back of the machine. And as soon as we hit the firewall, we're going to leave it right there. After that, we're going to connect our power plug to our pulse bar connector. We are not using the power pigtail on this machine. And then you also want to be aware, these wires right here, that's where your flasher relay is going to connect to. So we're going to attach that after we get this hooked up. Now I'm going to remove this cover on the dash and begin routing the wires up. Now it might be kind of hard to see, but there's a little cutout in a plastic panel that's going to let you route these wires up next to that pulse bar connector. So we have that cover we are removing from the pulse bar. And the power plug is going to plug straight in. Just make sure it's clipped on all the way. So that's snapped right into place. Next, we need to mount up the flasher relay. It does come with some screws, but this is a tight area to drill any holes. So I'm just using the provided double stick tape. And then I am going to run a zip tie through one of these mounting holes as well. That's just going to ensure that years down the road, it still stays in place even if the tape comes loose. Now for the tail harness, we're by the driver's side rear wheel well, and this 3-pin connector. We're going to route this along the existing wiring, and we're going to go into that center console area right by the firewall. I'm going to connect this to the main harness. Now for the tail light connectors, remember the connector with the brown wire, that's for the passenger side or right side. So I'm going to pass that through, and there's some wires that are routed over to the fuel pump on top of the gas tank. I'm going to follow those wires to the right side. And then this left side or driver's side, that's going to have the purple wire. Then you also have your license plate light wires. Now for this right side wiring, we're just following the frame all the way across this tube, up and to the back towards that tail light. Then to connect the wiring, you just want to remove the plug from the tail light, and you're going to hook the wires from our new harness in line with that. Now on the left side, it's going to be a similar process. We're just following existing wiring where we can, and then just going across the frame tube all the way to that tail light. Once that's plugged in, we're going to route the license plate light wires to the center of that rear bumper. Next, we have the license plate bracket. So with the Pro XPs and the Turbo Rs, you're going to have 2 bolts. We're going to use a T40 Torx bit to remove those, and then use them to install this bracket. But if you have a Pro R, down here on the fascia, you're gonna flip the bracket just like this, get it centered up. You're gonna mark both mounting locations. And then you've got an M6 by 20 millimeter bolt. You're gonna stick through there. Then you've got a washer and a flange nut on the back side. Now for the license plate light, we're gonna put it in the upper left-hand corner, and this can be used as one of the mounting bolts for your license plate. But if you do this, you're gonna have to use your 5/16 inch drill bit and just gain a little bit of clearance for this to mount in there. Now I'm gonna feed these wires through that mounting location. It's gonna fit in there nice and good. And now we can install our washer as well as the mounting nut. And I'm just gonna snug this down by hand for now until we actually have our license plate. And when you tighten this down, you just wanna make sure that when the light is shining out, that it's gonna be going across the license plate. And then for the remaining 3 mounting locations, you've got the M6 by 16 millimeter flange bolt with the nylock nut on the back side. And again, we're just gonna wait to install these until we have our license plate. After that, we can make our electrical connections. So we've got black to black and then blue to red. And then with all this extra wiring, I'm gonna push this back through, and after we test everything, it's just gonna make it a little easier to tie everything down. Now your instructions are gonna tell you to zip tie your wires at this point, but we're gonna leave everything loosely installed until the final step and make sure we verify that our lights work. Back at the front, we have these wires poking through. The routing will change from kit to kit. So if you have the bubble lights, it's gonna be a different routing than the front center accent light with the integrated turn signals. We're gonna show you how to do it with the integrated turn signals first. So all 3 wires we're gonna route towards the frame, and we're gonna follow this existing wiring down to the front passenger side. Now the turn signal wires, we're gonna feed just in front of the radiator above this plastic piece, and these are gonna sit right next to where that grille or the front center accent light sits. Now for the accent lights, we're gonna start with the wiring. So like we showed when we laid everything out, we're just going green wires all the way through. I'll start with that one. Just make sure you're clipped all the way on. Connect your bullet connector, and we'll go yellow wires all the way through. And then since we have so much wiring right here, I'm gonna push this back over to the area by the horn, and then we can pull some of that wire back through into the cab. And then you do wanna leave a little bit of slack, so we'll leave enough to where we can undo this if we ever need to. And then we're gonna set this into place. Again, pay attention to the 4 posts, and then we can reinstall those nuts on the back side. And don't forget the connector for the accent lights. And then we can reinstall the grille. Now, if you plan on installing bubble lights to your machine, you're gonna wanna run the connector with the green wire to the right side of the machine and the connector with the yellow wire to the left side. Now to install your bubble lights, you're gonna wanna determine where you want to install them onto your grille. So you can see we've already drilled these out on both sides of our machine. So we found this is gonna be a great location, and you're just gonna use the 3/4 inch supplied drill bit. Now when you do this, we do recommend removing the grill from the machine, and that way you don't hit anything on the back. But if you decide to drill it here, just be really careful you don't hit anything behind there. Now to install the bubble lights, you've got the rubber grommet, you wanna push that into place, and then on the light itself, it's actually gonna have some writing on it. So right here it says top, we're gonna make sure that's facing up, feed the wires through, press that in, and if it doesn't seat all the way, it helps to press from the back side. You can kind of rock it back and forth, work it all the way into place. Next, I'm gonna take the adapter for the wiring harness. I'm gonna plug the bullet connectors into the bubble light. So if your wires are like ours, we're going white to white and black to black. But if you have the bubble lights with the red and black wires, you're gonna be going red to black and black to white. So we're just routing these wires on the inside of this frame tube. We'll run them up to the connector and plug them in. Now we can do those same steps on the other side. Now to mount the horn, We're going to use this mounting location right here. So I'm going to remove this bolt with a 10mm socket. And then I'm going to go through that mount and then just reinstall the bolt. And I'm using a swivel extension to help me do this a little bit easier. And as I do this, I'm adjusting that horn just a little bit because we are going to have to bend that bracket to get this to sit exactly where we want it. Once you have it positioned where you want it and have that bolt tightened down, you can make your electrical connections. Now these are not going to be polarity sensitive, so either wire can go to either post. Now back to our 12-pin connector, we need to attach the rocker switch harness to that. I'm going to do that right here because where we're going to route this is going to be hard to see. Just make sure it's clipped into place. We've got 2 relays that are going to plug in right here. It doesn't matter which relay goes where. They can only go on one way. Then we have the dash pin connector. We're going to plug that in at the same time. Now that we've made our connections, we can go ahead and route the wires. So these 2 rocker switch connectors, we're going to route these on the dash just above the center console. We're going to remove 2 of those knockout plugs and route these through. This 12-pin connector and right by these relays, we're going to zip tie this up to the frame just underneath the dash. And then these dash pin connectors, you're just going to route these over to the display with all your gauges. Next, we're going to install the rocker switches. So the connector that has 7 wires going into it, that's going to be for the turn signal. And these are actually keyed. So there's a little plastic tab that needs to line up with that connector. And we can plug it in place. Just make sure it's clipped all the way in. And then the 2-wire connector, that's for the horn. Again, make sure you have it in the right position. I'm just going to set these in place. I'm just going to wait to push them all the way in until we test everything. Now on the back of the instrument cluster, we've got this gray connector. There's a tab on the bottom. You're going to press up on it. That's going to release the tab and you should be able to pull the plug out. Next we have this transparent cover. We need to remove it. So you can see these white tabs right at the bottom, right by the seal. You're going to press in on each side to release it and pull up. So that side's released. Next, we're going to open up that gray cover with a small flat blade screwdriver. And looking at the back side, you can see we have location 6 and 7. We're going to remove those blue pins from there. Next, you're going to take the green wire. That's going to go to location number 6. And you're just going to press that all the way in. You want to make sure that you've got the same height as the other pins in the connector. And then the yellow wire is going in location number 7. And once you have them all in the right spots, we're going to route these wires back through this wiring loom. So that just splits open. We'll press them in. So we'll just go back a little ways. And then you want to clip that cover back together. After that, we have the transparent cover. Just line that up. It only goes on one way. Make sure it clips all the way into place on both sides. Then we can clip this back into the instrument cluster. At this point, we can reconnect our battery so we can test everything and make sure all of the lights work. Now with our battery reconnected, I'm going to turn the key on to the run position. I'm going to make sure that all of our signals and lights work as well as the horn. Now that we know everything works, we can push the rocker switches in and zip tie all of the wires down. As you do this, just make sure you avoid any pinch points or hot spots or anything that could damage your wires. After that, you want to reinstall the covers for the center console. Then we're going to reinstall our front and rear seats. That's how you install the Tusk UTV plug-and-play signal and horn kit on your Polaris RZR Pro model. If you need this kit, it's available on our website. Just click the link in the description below. We offer free shipping on orders over $75. And if you want to see more helpful content like this, subscribe to our channel. I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Thanks for watching.